She currently works at PwC as a data science and machine learning manager, where she leads various AI, machine learning, and medical technology initiatives. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Layan Nahlawi.
Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be with you here today in this room, and I'm excited to take the room to a bit of a different topic than the first presenter. We'll be talking a lot of AI. As the title gives it away, we're going to move from code to care. So we're going to be talking about that intersection between AI, healthcare, and we'll sprinkle in digital media as well, given the interest of the room. So I'll start off just introducing myself. Not a lot of people in the room know me. So as TJ mentioned, my name is Layan. I have a PhD in computer science, specifically in AI application in the biomedical research area. I have come with 16 years experience in that. And I have forged quite a unique career path that's unique to me. I started in academia. I taught at University of Chicago, developed graduate courses in bioinformatics and taught that at University of Chicago, and then moved more into R&D in pharma and worked as a senior scientist at AbbVie in the Genomic Research Center there, where I brought my skill set in AI, machine learning, into drug discovery projects and research area. Then after that, an opportunity presented itself in consulting at PwC, and I jumped at the opportunity. And this is my current role right now, where I'm leading teams that develop AI solutions, ML models for healthcare clients, be it in the payer sector or the provider sector, hospitals, and clinics. So that's briefly my career path. A lot of my educational background kind of set the skill sets that I needed to forge that path. And this is what I'll be talking as well about with you, to try for every one of you to find that niche, your passion, and try to forge your own path. All right. So this is a kind of a funny, image here. So imagine yourself walking into a clinic and the nurse ushers you in to be seen by the algorithm, not the doctor. I think it's a bit futuristic right now. However, I want to tease that apart a little bit. At the moment, we have models, a lot of development that's happening to make this a reality. A lot of it's still sci-fi-ish, but we're getting there. And one of the most recent publication in Nature, it's a model that Google have been working on for the past 2 years. The model name is Amy. It's a foundation model, large language model. It's similar to GPT. Everybody's like, the hype is about ChatGPT these days, Gemini, all the cool LLMs out there that kind of democratize the idea of AI for everybody to use it. At some point in time, AI was very niche. Not everybody was able to access it, except if you are a developer, a computer scientist. Now it's really democratized. So what's cool about this model, Amy, it's an articulate medical intelligence explorer. This is an LLM that was trained mainly on text that medical students and physicians use to become doctors. They were trained on medical Q&As, on synthetic as well as real discourse between doctors and patients, and how they engage in this encounter in order to allow the model to develop the reasoning capability to diagnose. So, and if you're interested in reading the paper, it's in Nature. I think they published it a couple of weeks ago. They ran a double-blind experiment to actually assess how well the model is doing in reasoning and trying to, nail down the list of diagnoses for patients. So double-blind meaning the doctors and the patients that were part of this experiment did not know if the doctor is a real doctor, a real PCP, versus Amy that's doing the diagnoses. And from a technical perspective, the cool thing is the transformer architecture for the software engineers in the room. So that's the super learner. That's the brain of these LLMs. The transformer architecture, it's a neural network model, and it has quite a significant ability to build connection between concepts without first-hand coding them. So there's no rule-based engine here we're talking about. We're not telling the model, if the blood pressure is such and such, then the patient is likely to have a blood pressure problem. Or if their sugar level or A1C is like this, then they should be diabetic. We're not doing that. We're just providing the information in medical Q&A, medical textbooks, and the model is building these connections based on the probabilistic nature of seeing these concepts together. Of course, there's in the background a way to validate that the reasoning that's being done through knowledge graphs, so there's concepts and the connection between them. This is for validation. But what I wanted to draw your attention to is this assessment here. So this assessment here, where they compared Amy to PCP. And what is really cool is the perception of the patient of the model, how their bedside manners, how trustworthy they found them. And this is like a breakthrough. This is not something that we had seen before. And I think a key component to this model, in addition to the super learner architecture that was the core of Amy, it's how it was delivered. And this is where I'd like to bring in the skill set that everybody's building here in TDMP, where digital media is really key to be able to bridge the advancements that we're doing in AI and to deliver it to human in healthcare specifically. And this is like a very critical, sensitive area. A lot of patients are involved, and there's a very high level of vulnerability with patients. So delivering these, the outcome of these models and interacting with these models needs a different level of communication, needs a different level of delivering that message in a very appealing and easy to grasp manner, and it should be very intuitive to interact with. So this is everybody in gaming and digital media. This is an area that's really hot right now. So one thing I really like to engage with my audience. So stop me if you have a pressing question before the Q&A. And, I don't like to be speaking by myself. All right. Go ahead.
So the axes that we have for patient confidence in care, nearly identical. Oh, sorry. There you go. I'm bad. Yeah, I don't need a mic. I'm just really loud. In the axis up there, we have the patient's confidence in care, nearly the same as it would be for a doctor. And again, the confidence in the model for openness and honesty, again, dead on. How are they communicating? So is this just like written concepts that are coming across? Is it something where they have like an actor imitate someone to like talk for the model? How is the patient actually getting this feedback to produce this confidence level between the Amy simulation and the actual primary care physician?
So the original training phase had simulated discourse between patients and actor patients. But then the final experiment, they were exposed to actual encounter setup where there's PCPs and patients, and there was the output of Amy was kind of delivered through an actual human rather than with a.
That's what I thought was basically like a scripted event, but they don't know the person they're talking to as an actor.
Exactly.
He's just reading a script that was delivered to them by Amy.
Exactly. And the paper had also much more technical comparison on the top 10 N diagnoses that the PCP came up with and what Amy came up with. And they also compared it with what Amy alone came up with, what a PCP assisted with Amy came up with, and what a PCP alone did. And Amy actually did better than a PCP assisted with Amy and what the PCP alone did.
Yeah, I think the illuminating thing to me, if I'm reading the graph correctly, is that the Amy model buried and crushed empathy, and the doctors did not.
Yeah.
You're like, it's a robot, bro.
Exactly. This is the
patients
breakthrough.
they're feeling more heard. I bring this up because we have a long-standing medical thing with my wife, so it's something we go to doctors all the time. And that bedside manner thing, playing back to the earlier speaker, this idea of being presentable and empathetic, it goes completely across all professions.
Exactly.
Just being a subject matter expert as a doctor and saying, oh, blah, 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 if your patient can't connect with you, what is the point?
100%.
Literally, a chatbot is more empathetic than my actual doctor. Where are we at?
You said it, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. So on that note, I'm going to be moving. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Yes.
So with the research showing that Amy is doing better than even better than when assisted by a PCP, how would the medical field then destigmatize using AI, right? Because I think with the research, having it presented by a human is fantastic. I think if the patient, though, knew that it was even this highly trained AI, I think if an AI came up with your diagnosis, they would freak out.
That's true.
So what would be, I guess, the necessary steps to destigmatize that so that people won't go, oh, an AI did it, oh, so it's wrong. I need the actual human to do it, now that we know that it's even better at the diagnosis.
Yeah. So I think we're literally that first image, we're far from that. One step towards that is the democratization that happened with ChatGPT and the awareness of AI and what AI can do that ChatGPT did with everybody. So everybody now is talking about AI. Everybody wants AI in their businesses, in their homes. However, the topic of care in healthcare specifically, and that connection between the physician and their patient, it's very critical. There's high vulnerability, as I mentioned. And I think we need to make it well understood, the error rates that these AI models make and compare it to what humans do. And, humans make mistakes. Lawsuits in the medical field are very renowned, and there are tons of them. So when we increase the awareness about that we're literally doing at par, and we start exposing patients to the empathy that a model or a chatbot can deliver to them, then we can get closer to this. But there's another thing that I wanted to bring up as well. Right now, AI is being used in almost every hospital, in every research center, in every cancer center. Right now, it's so intertwined, especially with biomedical imaging. There isn't a system out there that doesn't rely on, models to assist, let's say, procedures, diagnostic procedures, to guide the physicians in, biopsy collection. It guides them in reading the images, even in the medical education. It's so intertwined right now, but it's still kind of opaque to the patient, except if you are working in the healthcare field, then you would, know how is that happening. I hope I answered your question. All right, so moving on. Another, hot area of AI that would be really, I think it will resonate well in the room, is virtual and augmented reality. And I chose the topic of surgery specifically because there's a lot of advancement that's happening there. Number one, in terms of medical education. So virtual reality and augmented reality is heavily being used in these medical centers to train residents, to be able to help them with their needle insertions, with, let's say, back pain surgeries, with augmenting the surgical field, with overlaying ultrasound images, MRI images, to help them see what they cannot see right in the surgical bed. And this is something that cannot be done except using AI and digital media. This is like a form of digital media that's currently being used in operation rooms. And the more realistic it is, the more close to reality it is, the less delays and jitter and whatever it is in the delivery of the AI outcome, the more beneficial it will be to the surgeon as well as to the patient. So in UC Davis, they're currently, like the bottom image here is from UC Davis. So in addition to using that augmented reality with overlaying, the skull images on the surgical bed, they're also using these VR goggles to actually show the patient what is the surgeon going to do inside your brain, for example. So instead of showing the patient's X-rays or MRIs, and it's really hard if you don't have that spatial intelligence, 3D spatial intelligence to be able to see in 3D how that, what is the doctor gonna be doing in your brain. Using these VR, they're projecting holograms for them and showing them exactly the trajectory that the doctors are gonna take in order to kind of appease their mind, what are you gonna be doing inside my brain. So this is also a very rich area of the marriage between AI, healthcare, and digital media. Moving on, I know there's a lot of gaming folks here. So serious gaming is another important area in this landscape that we're trying to discover today. So does anybody know about serious gaming? Okay, awesome, faculty only. All right, so, okay, cool, all right. So honestly, the first time I heard about it, I was still in grad school at Queens, and we had a very cool lab that we knew they had, like, sports equipment in the lab, and we were so intrigued to understand what they do there. And basically, they were building games for people with spinal cord injuries to help them in their rehabilitation and to literally have motivation for them to go through the course of their treatment. There's a lot of, sorry, as I mentioned, vulnerability. There's a lot of sometimes depression that these patients have, and a lot of also of these patients are kids that actually need a little bit of motivation, encouragement to stay put and do the treatment that's a lot of time painful for them to do. So you can imagine having a game that's fun for the kid to engage with, and at the same time, it will allow them to recover. It would allow them to, have a better outcome of their treatment, and a lot of times as well, have a faster healing. And this is done across the board, not only with kids, but also adults and even with seniors that have mobility issues, getting them excited. Seniors, a lot of time, they would not want to engage in, physical therapy or rehabilitation therapy. So having something that is kind of engaging for them, and this is the tricky part. What kind of game can you develop to get a senior interested in, going through the course of their rehabilitation exercises? Any questions? All right. Oh, go ahead.
What are some of the challenges when it comes to training these large language models?
Okay. So the challenges, number one is computing power. You need computing power, and you need access to really large data. So if you want to start from scratch with these large language model, you need a large body of data to train and to allow the model to build all those connections through it. But the cool part is, all of the hyperscalers that we know about, Google, AWS, Microsoft, OpenAI, they have the data centers, they have access to a lot of data, so they're doing a lot of the work ahead of time for us. So we have those, GPT stands for generative pre-trained, model. So these are pre-trained, and they can be fine-tuned after that for a specific task. So you don't have to start from scratch. It's cool to start from scratch and have your own model, but you don't have to. You can take, DeepSeek with the breakthrough that they had, they made their model open source. They're out there. The weights of those, of the models that actually are learnable, they're modified through the learning process. They're out there. You can have it, and you can retrain or fine-tune on a specific task. And actually with DeepSeek, it was shown that you don't really need as big of data centers. You can go with smaller chips to be able to do that with distillation and other concepts. But yeah, I would say these are the two main challenges, the availability of the data and the availability of computing power. All right, so let me just see how we're doing on time. Okay. So the next topic that I also wanted to bring is digital twin. Did anybody hear about digital twin except for faculty? I know faculty did. Other than faculty? Okay, all right. So there's a lot of hype. Actually, a few years back, it was the hype about digital twin in so many different areas, not only in healthcare. But in healthcare specifically, it has an edge because of the possibilities it opens for providing care to patients. So digital twin for health is basically building a twin, a virtual twin of the patient on a computer and include all of the data, the different multimodal data we have about patients, from their genomic signature, their DNA sequences, their methylation, their vitals, even images that are available for the patient. So building literally a twin that exists on a computer, that it's powered by AI as well. And this opens up a lot of opportunities when we have that, including potentially simulating hypothetical situations to see what would the outcome be using predictive analytics with ML. So if, let's say, we change the diet of this digital twin of an X person, what would their A1C sugar level be? What would their blood pressure be? What can we do if we engage in a gene therapy with them? How would they respond? So literally the sky's the limit with what can be done there and how we can prevent diseases with having a fully comprehensive digital twin for human. So there's also a lot of work in digital twins for literally moving away from testing on animals. If you have a very accurate digital twins and you have the models and the reasoning capability to mimic what the genomic machinery does in the human body or the blood system would do in the body, then we would reach a point where we don't need to actually test on animals. and clinical trials would have a complete different form. It would engage mainly with the virtual twins of people rather than engaging with people themselves. And as you can imagine, in order to be able to deliver a virtual twin that is well perceived by, patients and people, again, I would add, sprinkle in the digital media component, and this has to have a form of relaying that is acceptable by the people, that's easily consumable by them, as well as their providers, their the whole healthcare system. And if we're talking about, for the software engineers in the room, if we're presenting these results as code and, open a terminal and see a bunch of numbers, no one's going to consume that, and we're not going to reach that democratization of the benefit of such models. Right? Okay, moving a little bit to hit more on the software engineering component, the interest in the room. So we talked about different data modalities so far, and one cool and an interesting development basically happened during COVID. I think people had time to actually do it, and they published it. It's an effort by NIH researchers. It's called GenoML, and for whoever had their hands dirty building an ML model with either genetic data or even any kind of data, you would know that most of the time that is needed to build these models is consumed through cleaning up the data, putting it in a decent format, trying to remove outliers, doing all the non-cool stuff first. So GenoML actually built a package. How many Python developers we have in the room or have done some Python development? Cool. Okay, not a lot, but cool. All right. So this package, why it's really cool, because it's built to handle different data modalities that touches healthcare, and it goes through the full pipeline from cleaning the data, munging the data, doing any transformation needed there, doing the harmonization, training different models. There's a plethora of models there that are supported, AutoML, and tuning it, and even there are within this package, there's also a plethora of techniques and functions that can be called to do the validation. Because, the validation, again, is where you can make sure that your models is not spitting garbage. It's going to be useful and usable. And this is when you can take the outcome of this model and move with it to the next step, with adding that layer of consumption that's acceptable by whoever is going to be using it. All right. Moving forward from pure package development into something that is really close to my heart in drug discovery, especially that I spent a few years at AbbVie, and I saw the pace of drug discovery in pharma and how long it takes. Coming from computer science, the field is so quick. Literally, if you don't publish your idea within a few months, you're going to get scooped. If you don't, put your paper or your idea on archive, somebody else is going to do it. So the field is so fast-paced. When I went to AbbVie, and I was, started working as a senior scientist there, I looked at the pace and how they're not fully utilizing the power of computing in general in a lot of the work that's being done there. Be it the imaging experiments that they do on mice and rats to test things, or even the basic research that's being done. Now with the new LLMs and specifically foundation models. So I want to add this differentiation between LLMs and foundation model. They're not exactly the same. Foundation model is the umbrella for LLMs. LLMs is mainly just models that are trained on language, text, audio, whereas foundation model, is the bigger umbrella. These models can be trained on different multimodal data, be it genetic data, like in this example for drug repurposing. These foundation models are basically trained on molecular formations of these drugs and their characteristics, as well as diseases, their molecular signatures, and indications of that connects drugs and diseases that we know of. And using these foundation models, it's speeding up the concept of repurposing. So with a show of hand, does anybody visited the concept of drug repurposing before? Do you understand that concept? So this is a concept when a drug is first discovered for a certain condition, and it's used for that for a while, and then they discover a different use for it after a while. And then they actually, similar to GLP-1s, where now this is like the most famous drugs with, Manjaro and the other drugs, they were first discovered for diabetes treatment, and now it's being repurposed for weight loss. And it's booming. This is like, there's a lot of research about and chatter about GLP-1 drugs. So the speed that this foundation model gives us to do this repurposing is unmatched, because the steps that are needed to discover, understand the disease structure molecularly, from a symptoms level, from its what could go wrong in different organs that are not directly affected by it, the protein level signature there as well of each diseases, and then understanding drugs that are out there and how you can literally bridge these concepts. This is not a simple task. It needs a lot of brute force to be done. This is why before foundation models, a lot of ML techniques have been developed to be able to do that. But with the advent of these super learners, the transformer architecture, now this is being done in literally much shorter period of time. And you can imagine what are the possibilities there. Okay. I think I need to speed up the process a little bit to go through the slides that I have. Sure, go ahead.
And that would be a really solid topic for them.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yes, there's a lot of work that's. Sorry, go ahead.
Curious, does this have a lot to do with, I remember seeing YouTube videos on protein folding and figuring out how to match everything or figure out how all the proteins, because we can track that
With
now?
the AlphaFold, yes. The AlphaFold is this is one of the models that actually helped the pharmaceutical industry come up with the molecular 3D formation of the drug that would actually deliver the effect that they need. However, with drug repurposing, the 3D formation of the molecule is one of the features that would be used for the drug, but the model does not necessarily, investigate that. It uses it as a piece of information, but the connection that it's trying to build is literally bringing that relationship between existing drugs into new diseases.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Okay. So another hot area of AI in healthcare is the use of AI, machine learning, with electronic health records. So electronic health records, they're literally the records for every patient that has all your vitals, or your labs, all your encounters with your physician, all the data, medical data that you have, like we have about a patient. literally lives in a medical record. And one chart can go in up to thousands of pages that include numbers, even like, free text from nurses, from doctors. So ingesting this information and trying to make sense of it to deliver the best diagnosis is becoming harder and harder to be done by human alone. So there's need to assist in ingesting, like, these charts using AI to support the doctors that are doing the diagnoses. And probably everybody had experienced this. You walk in the clinic, the doctor is super busy. They have a million people out there in the waiting room. You have 10 minutes with them. They need to understand what you came for, what are the symptoms that you're complaining about, come up with a diagnosis, and give you a potential treatment and leave the room. It's a very short period of time to go through hundreds of pages, a problem list that's potentially super long. And if, God forbid, they miss a diagnosis that you had before and they prescribe a certain drug that, I don't know, you potentially maybe have an allergy on a certain component, and they miss it, then there are going to be consequences there. So assisting in these ingestions, summarizing that is really, really helpful. Another thing, moving away from providers into the payer sector, where mostly my current client is, where they actually need to support their members and provide them the best coverage possible, and to be able to cover those care gaps that's known in payer language. And they have nurses that work day and night to go through these charts and see what is missing there. Is there screenings that this patient is not doing? And it takes them literally hours to go through one chart. Whereas in one of the models that I, led a team to build for them through a use of LLM, we're literally going through a 1,000-page chart and extracting all the needed information from diagnoses, so on and so forth, with less than a minute. We're going through that in less than a minute. So this is like literally a game changer, as well as in health record, in addition to other areas other than the ingestion and the summarization, also bringing in predictive analytics here and trying to add risk scores to the doctors when they're seeing their patients, like, well, their blood level was such and such on this measure, and they're complaining about this symptom. There's a high chance that they have this condition. This helps the doctor a lot to be able to provide these risk scores firsthand. They will have the final say, because we're not at that level of adoption that patient can accept the model to completely do that on their own. All right, we have 5 more minutes. Okay. So I'll probably skip through that. We touched on, the multimodal foundation model, but I wanted you to see that MedLM, another model for Google, it's a foundation model that's trained only on X-rays. And the ability of that model is surpassing also human ability to actually find irregularities in these images and generate reports that radiologists can actually review and help patients better work with their conditions. So this is my last slide for the landscape of AI in healthcare and digital media. And here I just wanted to emphasize, I tried to sprinkle the topic of the human-AI interaction throughout the models that we talked about and the different areas. But I just wanted to emphasize here, maybe this is an unconventional way for people in the gaming industry, in digital media, in TDMP to think about this career path, but this is really important. If we want to go to the next level where it is accepted, AI models are accepted, we really need to invest on that delivery and consumption layer of these models. And this cannot be done without all the knowledge that we have gathered with digital media, production. This is where we can literally make a difference, and you guys can make a difference there. So on that note, I say that's, if you want to take one message out of my talk today, forge your own career path. Literally check all the options there, even the new options, the unconventional ones. When I decided to do what I did in my career, people kind of frowned a bit. I mean, you have a PhD, the conventional way is to stay in academia, teach and do. I kind of satisfied that with my endeavor with U of Chicago, but I wasn't kind of fulfilled the way I want it. Healthcare and the impact of AI in healthcare is something that I'm really passionate about. I hope that this radiated to you. And this is why I was trying to see different paths and to see how I can maximize the impact that I can generate through my career. Another message, takeaway message from my talk, other than forging your own career, is literally honing in on your transferable skills. We're all going through, learning experiences. There's courses that you're taking, material that's important for whatever program you are in. This is important. Keep it, work on retaining it, work on using it. But the most important thing that I learned throughout my career is those transferable skills. These are the skills that you learn throughout your journey at university, if you go to grad school as well, even with your internships, with your first jobs. These are the most important things. This is your bucket of tools that you can take with you anywhere you go. Your communication skills, your ability to problem solve, your critical thinking, your creativity, innovation, all of these are the things that matter. And focusing on these transferable skills would open up doors to you. Because fixating only on the material that you learned at school sometimes might make you feel a bit claustrophobic, especially when you're doing your job hunting. You might feel, oh, I'm not seeing what I want. I'm not seeing what actually would be the natural next step for the project that I did in my capstone. So just pivoting a little bit away from the topics and the material that you covered in your school to the skill set that you build would actually open up a lot of doors. So, and in order to be able to do that, in addition to the skills, you really need to understand you. You have to have this self-discovery. You have to know, what am I good at? What am I not good at? What I love, what I don't love. Of course, we need to make sure that we're paying our dues, like, Glenn was saying. And, but what I can tell you, try to find that passion and capitalize on it to be able to pay your dues. And there's always a way. It doesn't have to be the conventional way. There's always a way. There's so many different types of intelligences. I put it on the slide. We can go in long debates about it, definitely, because there's more than these types, in my opinion. But this is the most, breakout of it. But there's a lot of options, and don't get fixated on one. And find a mentor. Find a mentor. It's really important to find a mentor for your career. Find a mentor that you look up to, somebody you like their career path, you see like they did something that you want to do as well. Definitely don't fall into the comparison trap. Don't compare your path to somebody else, but learn from their experience and try to do that transfer learning, again, borrowing from machine learning, into your own career path and how you can improve it. It does not have to be an owl. And the last thing I want to say, I think we're over time, a bit over time. Oh, we're doing good. in AI, there's a huge, as you can, kind of appreciate after the talk right now, there's a huge spectrum of career paths that you can take, depending on what you like, what you're good at, what skill set do you have. From being an AI developer into being a strategist or an ethicist in AI. These are fields that are really hot right now, and trying to position your experience in one of these areas is really key to getting in this field. And as I mentioned, I hope you kind of appreciated that the skill set that you build that are not necessarily AI-driven maybe, but trying to see that you can fill in some gaps in the AI area with even experiences that are not necessarily in the AI field. And this is a chart. I'll potentially give it to MJ. It's very helpful. You can find it on Coursera. It helps. It's a kind of a decision tree to guide you a little bit in your, career path etching. And I'll end at this note. Etch your own story. That's my final plea. And thank you, everyone.
We're now going to do a question and answer segment.
Might be that one. So you said So you said near the beginning that AI was trained with old textbooks and old solutions, old results. That means like in the future when AI goes to learn, some of the results it's going to learn from are AI results. Bob's your uncle 10 years from now, the majority of results that future AIs are learning for are going to be AI results. Where it seems like a closed system, where in that could innovation actually fit in?
It's not necessarily a closed system yet. It might turn into that, definitely. We're always keeping a human in the loop right now, especially for validation, because you know that with AI and GPT, you probably interacted with ChatGPT, you would see those hallucination and confabulation where it actually picks up some real facts and adds like, pepper and salt to it. And it becomes like a non-factual, right? So we still need, at this stage, we still need that human in the loop for validation. Moving forward, I don't believe that the AI is going to be autonomous and, generating these outputs and feeding, the next models completely without a human input. I still feel that there is a huge need to add that human perspective to it, because the lack of autonomy actually generates issues. The stochasticity nature of these models also would add noise, and there's always this need to have supervision for what's happening there.
Question on, I was watching the Super Bowl and there was a commercial.
Yeah.
I thought they talked about, it was for a drug company, and I thought they talked about a moonshot to cure cancer by 2030. True? I've read nothing else about it.
Oh, I am, I don't know specifically about that, but I know that we, at this moment right now, there are types of cancers that we do have cures for them. There's, as you can appreciate, there's so many different variations of cancers, and even within one type of cancer, there's a lot of, again, variations and forms that it takes. And I think the drug repurposing, AI, the AlphaFold, all these models are going to bring us closer to that. I'm not sure about that date, but it might be possible given the speed of the realization that we're seeing of these models right now with these super learner architectures. We might be that close.
I was wondering what kind of ideas you've had to make the design for this information more palatable for patients.
Is there any specific model you're talking about, or in general?
Just in general.
Yeah. I mean, just connecting to the empathy and delivering it in a way that's, I'm not going to talk to a senior patient and ask them to use the most recent technology to connect with it. So we always have to keep in mind the preferences of the patient and how they want to consume that. For younger generation, we have a much bigger, spectrum of options for designs for them to consume these AI models. But for specific niche, if we might call it, patients or people, we need to really listen to how they like to consume and see these outputs in order to design it. Similar to, let's say, we talked about serious gaming, we cannot have a game, I don't know, of a game of, I'm blanking on games. I'm not a gamer, so we cannot have a strategy game, for example, for like a little child to incentivize them to do their rehabilitation exercises. So we always have to have this human in the loop to actually listen in and improve what we're trying to deliver. Welcome. Sorry. Okay.
So just general question about large language models. I think that, a lot of what we get in the culture and the zeitgeist is AI is amazing, AI is awesome, AI is the future. But like anything, when you look under the hood, a lot of it is about the details. Like, for example, medical research and how that's fed into an AI large language model. You'd like to think that they're pulling from peer-reviewed, excellent science,
Yep.
and you'd like to think that medical researchers are fairly ethical as far as how they would feed in information to an LLM so that these people actually gave permission to have it fed into, right?
Yeah.
So that's sort of I don't want to say that's a closed system, but that would be a system that I would be willing to trust, right? As opposed to like ChatGPT,
Of course.
Claude, Sonnet, all this other stuff, which is basically, let's feed as much stuff into it as we can.
Exactly.
And it's violating all kinds of intellectual property and copyright.
Yeah.
Because we're chasing quarterly stock market hits, number go up, right?
Exactly.
And it's pulling in from, it's a lot more likely to be wrong in that situation. So basically the TLDR is, I'm concerned that the public's experience with AI, where it hallucinates sometimes and gives us information that is wildly wrong because of how it's trained,
Exactly.
as opposed to something that is more smaller, that's being given excellent medical information.
Exactly.
I'm concerned that the trust piece that you mentioned before, which we're already inherently, hey, this is my body, this is my health, I'm not trusting a robot, is going to be further biased by ChatGPT spits out nonsense.
100%.
So I don't trust AI.
100%, And, I think this trust issue is a big thing, and this is why responsible AI is a big area of research. It's in the corporate world, it's being pushed for so much, the ethics and how we're going to govern like what data goes in, how the data is used, being really protective of the privacy and being like, following all the HIPAA rules, HIPAA guidelines to, avoid literally having any breaches there. So responsible AI is literally a very hot area for the ethicists in the room. This is a very good career path right now. There isn't enough policies or principles to guide and match the speed of the development we're seeing in AI, and we need that, especially to build the trust and to be able to, democratize it in a good way, not in a negative way. And that's one of the main reasons why I gave the examples in the talk of Amy, MedLM, not ChatGPT, not Claude Sonnet, because Amy is not exposed to the publicly available knowledge. It's specifically medical textbooks, medical Q&A, and this is the edge there. They're still, because of the stochasticity of the learner itself, there's still potential of hallucination. And this is why it's really important with responsible AI to build those guardrails to make sure that we're not spitting out those hallucination and confabulation to patients and doctors. Sorry.
So for the models that we're learning through like the actors and everything, how would they tell if like a lump is cancerous? Would like the doctor like feel the lump and tell it how it felt, or would they have to go through like different screenings and everything?
So, there's robotics that needs to be involved if we want to reach a point of, having a palpable experience for the model to get it. However, at the moment, we're relying on that human in the loop that can describe what is being seen at the surgical table or in the clinic to feed that piece of information back to the model. And this is how the models are learning. In addition to that, human reported, human in the loop, there are other, formats or of getting that data that the doctors at the moment rely on a lot more than the palpable experience, which are the PET scans, MRIs, the ultrasounds, and these are formats of information that the models can ingest and they can understand, and you can train them on it. They can see a low intensity on an ultrasound in a much better way than a human eye can see it. They can see something abnormal on an MRI or on an X-ray also in a better way because of the way that they ingest the information is not literally in a visual manner always. There are models that actually ingest it in a visual manner, but most of the model uses the intensity matrices, basically numbers. And in order to be able to pick up patterns through looking at numbers is much more accurate than relying on the visual intensity that we can see. Oh, sorry.
Going back to the augmented reality slide earlier, there was a picture that really intrigued me where it was a skull 3D overlay, an actual person. I worked in an OR where they did chronotomies, and I think something like that is something they could totally benefit from. So that 3D model, is that like a CAT scan of like a person's like skull that would be like implemented on top of them, or is that just like a pre-made thing?
So these are pre-op images that are actually stitched together to form that 3D model that would be overlaid there. And in addition to the formation of the 3D from like a CT scan, let's say with bones, second series of X-rays, there's also the component of what's known as a registration. So you have to fit in the coordinates of the actual body that you're seeing here with the coordinates of the images that pre-operatively these were taken. So you need to fit that. So there's a lot of computation power needed to actually overlay it exactly at what the surgeon is seeing.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Just a small question for the benefit of my students because of the table I'm at.
Sure.
You personally, how much of your time do you spend in an actual language, Python, C++, versus are you using tools or tools on tools for your personal work?
Okay, so personally, like right now with my role, I like to first start saying that I'm a C++ native speaker. So, yeah. So be in a manager position right now. So I'm leading teams that are basically hands-on, doing development in Python. A lot of what dictates what we do or what we use is actually the clients that we work with. A lot of our clients have nailed down a specific hyperscaler, for example, AWS or Azure, and then we would need to actually cater for that to use their specific hyperscaler for development. But at the moment, because of the speed of development and how we're pushed in the consulting realm, speed is really key. Python is the main language that we're using within the platforms of any of the big four hyperscalers.
So this is going to be our last question.
Hi. So let's say a company developed something similar to like Amy with an even higher effective rate for diagnoses. and suggesting care. And this gets used, and there are two prescriptions that are that have very similar effectiveness. Is there a concern / are there protections for if a drug manufacturer lobbied this company to where, hey, if ours is comparable to another, ours gets preferential
Favoring
treatment.
one pharmaceutical versus the other on
Yes.
the outcome. Yeah. This is where responsible AI comes. This is where you have to make sure there are no biases in the data that you're feeding your model. This is why it's really important right now to have a huge body of people looking into responsible AI, the ethics, the principle, the guardrails that we need to put to get to that next step, you know? All right.
Okay, if everyone could please give a round of applause for Dr. Nahlawi.